Coming up on UGTV, Standing Committee Meetings of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. A meeting of the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee. This will be followed by a meeting of the Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee.
Applications. I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Chris Slaughter, our Land Bank Manager.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening to everybody. Before we get started, just some changes. We did have to remove one of the applications. It was for 16 South 22nd Street. That is in our NRSA hold area. So we have contacted the applicant and told him it would not be available for sale at this time. Also, the application, and it'll reflect in the presentation, 2507 North 22nd Street is going to be presented as a yard extension, not a property acquisition. In our donations, we have removed one of those as well, 1606 North 66th Drive. We thought we would have an inspection of the property done by the meeting, and we did not get to that. So we will be presenting that at a later time. And at the end, when we do an update on the rehab program, we also thought the final inspection would be in for 234 South Furry. So we will probably be updating that at the next meeting on that. So with that, we'll get started.
Okay, in reference to applications, does any commissioner have any questions, concerns? Commissioner McKiernan.
I just have one question on 827 South 12th. I remember we had considered that at a previous meeting. I don't remember what the circumstances were at that, or correct me if I'm wrong. Did we consider that at a previous meeting?
It's the same applicant. I know there was a property on South Valley that I've told her is not available, and you could be right. This could be the same one. Let me pull it up on the
Because isn't this the one that is right next door to the triangle where Armadale Parkway or Argentine Boulevard, one of the two, goes to the southwest? Right there.
Correct. It's this property right here. Applicant lives here, and I believe a couple months ago they were awarded property right here on Pennsylvania. Again, there's a property over here off South Valley that has not been made available.
Okay.
And I apologize, I'd have to check my records. I just don't know if it was this property here or that one, but we did pull it at the time.
Now, this one on South 12th is a new property, so I have no further questions.
Commissioner.
Well, it's a transfer to the land bank. Is that appropriate at this time, or should I wait?
Sure, I think we're going to approve them all unless you...
We prefer the applications, and then we'll do the transfer.
All right, I'll come back.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to know if Mr. Garcia, Ramon Garcia, is present today, and the question I have really is just about a matter of how many other properties from the land bank Mr. Garcia may already own, what his plans are for this. Years ago, we had thought it a good idea if a requester had 5 or more to come forward to us and just explain his or her broader vision of where we're going with that, or where they're going with it and the purposes. So,
as Mr. Garcia is making to the podium, I will say that on the map here, the black is an outline of his current property, with the two below to the south, one to the north, are the land bank requests tonight.
He wanted to buy the property to extend his driveway, and on this side to make the yard more bigger.
Okay. Do you have any other properties? Have you secured any other?
No, just the property, the home where we live, that's the only property he has purchased.
Okay,
But because the driveway's small, and then people had been going back there to dump stuff in that, he wanted to make sure it was closed off and he could add to the driveway and they wouldn't go back there and drop off stuff that they were doing, acting like it's a dump, but it's not.
oh, okay. And so the area highlighted in black, that's your residence?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, that satisfied the questions I had.
All right.
Thank you.
Any further questions on applications? Okay, none appearing. A motion to approve.
Move to approve all applications as submitted.
Second?
All right. Motion and second. Please read the roll.
Roll call: Walters,
Aye.
Murguia. Aye. Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Walker.
Aye. Next, we'll take up transfers to the land bank.
I had a question on the 722 River Drive, which is a transfer to the land bank and a transfer from the land bank at the same time. It also says there's previous tax years due 2004 through 2004. Is that a typo? And the special assessment for weeds, is that a KCK or a county assessment in Edwardsville, or just, can you explain that whole thing?
Yeah, Commissioner, the assessment is from the city of Edwardsville, and it was for weeds. And
You own the property.
correct. And the taxes were from back to 2002, 3, and 4. So they're just simply asking to transfer us to the land bank, have the land bank abate those taxes and that assessment. And then once that's done, then go ahead and, if your approval's tonight, we'll go ahead and then transfer it back to them instead of bringing it back next month for that transfer.
Well, what is the amount of the taxes?
Just a little bit shy of $3,200, and the assessment is around $333.
So is this an unusual situation?
I would say yes, because I would think that the city wouldn't have any property that they own that would have back taxes on it. So this was just a request that came from the city manager, and so we thought we'd present it to you guys tonight.
Thank you.
This would be a case where, in reality, if we didn't do this, taxpayers of Edwardsville would be paying the taxes back to themselves, correct? I mean, school district would lose part of that tax. Is that not correct?
I would imagine they would still just be sitting out there.
Yeah, okay. Any further questions? All right, motion to approve? I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have motion and second. Could the clerk please read the roll?
Roll call: Walters,
Aye.
Murguia. Aye. Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Walker.
Aye. Thank you.
Now we have transfers from, so we would ask that after the taxes and assessments are abated, that we would transfer this back to the city of Edwardsville. And then we also have a request for 2910 and 2914 North 16th Street. As you can see here in the picture, they are surrounding 2912 North 16th. That house there is in our rehab program. It's currently under, or it was approved by the county administrator on August 25th, and it's currently under agreement. So they have asked that, following the rehab, this would actually make it more marketable in their plans to rent or to sell the property. So that's our request tonight, is to transfer that to them.
Any questions, commissioners? All right, motion would be appropriate.
Move to approve as submitted.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Clerk, please read the roll.
Roll call, Walters,
Aye.
Regia. Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Walker.
Aye. Donations.
Next, we just have the one, 5204 Miami Avenue. That's this property right here in black, just to the north of the fields over at Turner High. There are prior year taxes back to, from 2011.
What are the back taxes on the lot?
I'd say roughly about $1,200,
That's a vacant lot, right?
correct?
And they're donating the vacant lot to the unified government?
To the land bank.
And what's the frontage on that vacant lot?
I would say it's probably close to 50 feet.
Okay.
And, I'm sorry, I was looking at the application here. Remind me again, there are back taxes on this.
Correct.
How much?
About $1,200.
And are they donating it just to walk away from those? Well, but according to this application, the owner does not live in Turner.
Correct. She lives in Overland Park.
So we're just taking it so she doesn't have to pay the $1,200?
She's requesting to donate it. If you approve, yes, we'll take it. We'll abate the taxes. First thing we'll probably do is reach out to the neighbor right here and see if they want to extend their property.
How about she pays the back taxes and then we take it? I mean, you know, she can donate it when it's... Let me think about this one for a minute. What's the tax history on this? Did the 1,200, I mean, on the vacant lot, the 1,200, that has to be 7 years?
2011, I think, was the last one. Roughly about $200 a year. It's probably been the average.
Commissioner Townsend?
What does this property currently look like? Is it overgrown? Is it
No.
cut? What? What does it look like now?
It's been a while since I went out there, but it was in pretty decent shape. I mean, I wouldn't say it was freshly cut, but it wasn't tall weeds and overgrowth like that.
How long ago was that?
Probably early part of last week.
Unfortunately, the alternative here is to throw it into foreclosure,
Right.
incur the expenses of that to acquire the property, just to put it in the land bank, which would then erase the taxes as well. So the state recognizes a right to proceed against the individual taxpayer for, a deficit judgment, which Kansas does not and probably never will. I can't imagine why somebody would walk away from a piece of property that has potential for $200 a year.
What's the appraised value on the lot?
I might buy it.
I don't have that information, but I would imagine being in Turner,
Good.
15, maybe 10,000.
So after we get this property, after we accept the donation, you said you're going to reach out to the neighbors to see if they want it. How much are you going to charge them for that lot?
We would probably, our asking price would probably start at that appraised value.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd hate to see, when you have a piece of property that has some value, us sell it for, just to get it on the tax roll kind of price. We shouldn't, Okay.
So I'll just go on the record again as saying, in my opinion, there's no way that this should have gotten to 7 years, that we need to move on these properties before that time, and that I do object to somebody who doesn't live in our city holding this property and then walking away from it and leaving us I mean, granted, we get the property, and Commissioner Walker is correct, it'll probably cost us more to go get it than having them donate it and just eating the back taxes, but it should not have gotten to 7 years. We should have moved on this at year 1, year 2, and then at year 3, we should have taken care of it. That said, I'll move to approve as submitted.
Second.
Roll
Okay,
call.
I'm sorry. Waiting for Brian there to go ahead. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, regrettably, aye.
Aye.
Aye. That takes us to item 2, which is the Land Bank Rehab Program.
Yep. We were going to give you an update. I know your packet said 4 properties, but again, the one on Free we'll present next month. But we have 3 properties we're going to touch on, show you some pictures of how the properties ended up turned out. And then first, just wanted to give you some information, kind of what we have currently in our pool. We have 35 contractors in our contracting pool. Again, they're the only ones that get an opportunity to make an offer on any of our properties. Some of them also help us out by do the boarding for us as well. Currently, we have 70 in our name. 52 have been recommended for the rehab program or are currently being worked in the rehab program. 18 we're recommending for demo. The 3 houses we'll talk about here in a minute that have had the rehab completed. 6 houses have already started the rehab, meaning they've already closed. We have 16 houses awaiting that have been awarded by the county administrator, but we're waiting to close. It's taken a little extra time because of getting title insurance through the company we partnered with. We have 15 houses with no offers, so as we get new contractors on board, we give them an opportunity to go look at those and see if they'd like to make an offer on them. And then we have 12 houses from this current tax sale in August that we should be getting boarding bids this week. I'd like to recognize Charles Brockman. He's also acting as our construction manager on this. He's been very, very helpful in getting this program where it is now. So with that, we're going to talk about, or real quickly, I just want to say the 3 we're going to talk about here: 2028 South 15th Street, 1131 North 49th Terrace, 3609 Delavan Avenue. Combined, since they've all been finished and have all had private appraisals, the rehabbers have added over $266,000 value, or that's the new value of the 3 houses combined. It's about a $124,000 increase, which is also about 87.5% appraisal increase. So 2028 South 15th Street, Commissioner Walker, I know we had emails and calls on this one. This one was all the way back in December as we were really trying to get the program started. It was one of the first ones that really got going. But it was done by Summit Waters. And here's just some pictures of the inside of the property. As you can see, they kept some of the original features of the property, this built-in bookshelf there. Some pictures of one of the bathrooms they did. And just some of the other, the quality finishes again. So again, this took 2 months to rehab. Again, the appraised value in January was $42,800. They had a private appraisal for $80,000, and currently it's being rented for over $750 a month. Next is 1131 North 49th Terrace. I will say, when we first looked at this one, you had to walk up the steps sideways. There was so much growth. And as you can see, after we had all that removed, even that made a vast difference. Again, some pictures from the inside, the kitchen and bath, an extended. This was part of the old porch. Another picture of the bathroom. Outside, this is actually the back of the house. They added a nice little patio area, great landscaping. As you can see, concrete's poured. This is, as you continue down this way, this is actually this side. So this view right here is this back corner. They added a complete retaining wall, just did great work again. Some numbers on that. This only took a month and a half. was appraised at the beginning of the year, 52.9, 86,000 after appraisal. It's currently being rented for over 900 a month. Last one we'll talk about is 3609 Delavan. Quite a difference. Again, they were telling us about their different tiers of whether they're going to sell or whether they're going to rent, how they ended up picking their finishes and stuff. This is off the back room here. They said it's going to kind of just be a little sunroom. This one they actually did put on the market to sell, so they did a little bit higher end ceiling fan there. Wanted to just show you also, I mean, these are also getting the basements completely done. If there's foundation work, they'll go after it. Just a picture of how big they expanded that old driveway. Oh, wrong picture there. But again, Delavan took 2 months to rehab. It was appraised at 46.1 at the beginning of the year. Appraised at 100, that's what they put it on the market for. And within 12 hours, they had a full offer on it. So that's just the recap. You know, we're chugging along. Hopefully next month we'll have some more. Like I said, one of the things holding us back just a little bit is getting the time from title insurance ask to actually being able to close on these properties. We think we've kind of got that whittled down to maybe a 7 to 10 day period and stuff. So that's it. Unless you have any questions, that concludes my presentation.
Oh, good job. Oh, Commissioner?
Thank you. Yeah, it was a good job. Was the rehabber the same on all three of those properties?
Yes, they have 2 different companies, but it's the same group, yes.
Okay.
Summit Waters and J Block.
Okay. Did they know whether they were going to sell or rent at the beginning and made that decision you mentioned with the finishes, or was that developed as it kind of went along?
I think once they actually start comparing comps, rentals in those areas and stuff, the total investment that they have to put in, I think that helps them eventually make the decision. But we do ask whether they're going to rent or sell when they send their offer in. So I'd have to check if they said sell but ended up renting or vice versa.
Okay, thank you. Great job. 2 months, that's...
Any other questions? Okay, that concludes the agenda for the Neighborhood and Community Development Standing Committee. We will adjourn that. I believe, Mr. McKiernan, we can move right in if you are willing.
We can. Let's go ahead and call this meeting of the Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee to order. As always, public comment is welcome on any item that is up before the committee for discussion. If you wish to make a comment on any item, please make me aware, or any member of the committee. You'll have 3 minutes to come to the podium in the middle of the room and to make your comments. We do ask that everyone present please speak as directly as possible into a microphone for accurate recording and broadcast purposes. And just to remind you, if you were here for a land bank transaction, that those were all approved as submitted, and you can follow up with Mr. Slaughter for those. If you'd please call the roll, please, for this meeting.
Roll call. Alvey? Walters?
Here.
Murguia? Here. Townsend?
Here.
Walker?
Here.
McKiernan?
Here. The first item up is some revisions to our initial agenda that came out. There was a reminder that there was a blue sheet that had the ordinance for item number 5 and had the resolution for item number 6. So all of that information was put out after the initial agenda. And then finally, there was a pink sheet which removed item number 7, the gap fund policy. There had been some discussion about whether or not it adequately addressed financing for single-family for sale, and we collectively decided that it didn't. So we've asked staff to work on some proposals or some parameters for including single-family for sale residential in this gap fund policy. Staff's going to work on that and then going to bring that policy back for discussion at our December meeting. So I look forward to that, because certainly can always use some single-family for sale residential. With that, our first item of business is approval of our standing committee minutes from our meeting of September 11th.
Move for approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve as submitted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Those minutes are approved as submitted, which takes us to our committee agenda. And item number 1 is a report on the third quarter investment, and that is, I think it's Lisa Nolan from the Treasurer's Office who will be presenting that report.
Yeah, let me introduce Lisa. She's our cash manager. She's also the deputy treasurer, and she's managing our property tax administration division and also handling the accounting of all of our revenues as well as the investments. So I'll hand this off to her.
Thank you, Kathleen. Good evening, everyone. We had a PowerPoint presentation, but it didn't make it down here, so I think everyone has a copy of it. So we'll just go off that. And I'm just going to give a report on the quarterly investment report for the third quarter. The first page of the presentation is a investment summary page. It just shows the summary of the total portfolio by type of investment.
Hang on just one moment here. We're going to see if we can leverage our technology. I mean, I got it attached to an email, so shouldn't I be able to forward that email over to that computer? So the answer to the question is no, you can't get there from here. So we appreciate you bringing copies of it. It's not possible, unfortunately, to get that up on the computer for everybody to see tonight. That will be posted as part of the minutes for this meeting, so we will be able to review it at a later date. And it just underscores the importance of doing our best to get stuff here in time for the meeting.
Yeah, I wanted to point out that the PowerPoint actually is 4 slides, which are the 4 pages of the investment report. So it's very similar. And on top of it, the investment report will be posted on the Finance Department website once approved by your body. So thank you.
Okay. As I was saying, the first page is a summary of our total portfolio by investment. One of the first lines is highlighted. It says property taxes held by other entities. That is just property tax collections to be distributed to other entities. The remaining portfolio, the total portfolio line reflects the unified government's portion of the portfolio. I just wanted to point out that the total investment earnings for the portfolio as of this third quarter was 1.36%. Compared to second quarter, it was at 1.17%, and in first quarter we are at 1.99. So we have increased, which is very good. The second page of the report is the compliance report. It shows that the UG is in compliance with its investment policy, except for with the 30% limit in a single institution, as Capital Federal's holdings total 40% of the portfolio. This is mainly due to we recently revised the investment policy, and it changed from a 60% limit per institution to a 30% limit. So we are working on with upcoming investment strategies to bring us into compliance with that portion of the policy. Since this investment policy investment report went out, we have matured. We've had $8 million mature, and we have another $7 million maturing in fourth quarter. The next page is the issuer detail. Yes, sir.
Right below the compliance report, there's a bar graph of interest earned, and the 2017 bar is just for 3 quarters. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's correct.
Oh,
That's correct. And we expect it at the end of the year to reach around $1.4 million.
So already in 3 quarters of 2017, we're about 30% ahead of last year for the full year. That's excellent. Thank you.
Where's the other side of that go? Why is that?
The reason for that is that the market has improved fixed income interest rates. So we were able to invest to invest in those higher rates, and now we're holding on to them. I suspect that as we continue to make investments, we'll continue to have better investment earnings because the market is just better than it has been in the past. And in addition, there were investments that were entered into several years ago with lower rates, and those amounts have matured, and we've reinvested them at higher interest earning rates, so that's why.
The third page of the presentation is the issuer detail page. It gives detail by issuer, our banks or agencies that issue various securities. The fourth column, again, shows the percentage that each institution has within our portfolio. And then the final page is the transactions that occurred during the third quarter. We've had, if you will notice, we've had 9.4 million mature, and we've invested a little, we've invested a little over 9.4 million, and we've matured 8.1 million, basically. And like I mentioned earlier, we do have another 7 million maturing this quarter. And that is my presentation. Does anyone have any questions in regard to this?
So typically in September, we do tend to, our collections don't meet our expenditure needs. So typically in September, we draw down our portfolio, but then it builds back up in the fourth quarter of the year. So, and you can see that trend line if you go to the second page and you see this graph that shows how the portfolio moves throughout the year for the past few years.
Thank you.
Perfect. Appreciate the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that brings us to item number 2, which is an update on state changes to the low-income housing tax credit process. And I believe Mr. Waters will give us that update.
Thank you, Commissioner. The Unified Government received notice from the state that they will be no longer requiring a resolution of support from local officials with respect to low-income housing tax credits. And in fact, under federal law, beginning on December 31st, the state will be prohibited from considering local resolutions of support. So this, of course, affects our process. We had a LIHTC policy where we had different objectives that we reviewed applications for. That is essentially moot at this point and will no longer be needed. So from this point, LIHTC projects really are considered just like any other project. To the extent that they request or apply for economic development assistance, we would review that through EDNF. To the extent that they need to go through planning and zoning, we would analyze them under the planning and zoning factors just like any other application, but we will no longer be doing the resolution of support.
Fascinating. Any comments or questions for Mr. Waters?
Will they be accepting resolutions of non-support?
No, Commissioner.
We don't
either way.
Any dialogue with
They
them?
want, right?
That's correct. The state can't accept
Any guidance from local?
Right.
Great.
Commissioner Townsend.
Counselor, was there any indication how this came about?
Yes, Commissioner. There was a 2015 Supreme Court decision, Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs versus Inclusive Communities Project, which essentially ruled that entities can bring disparate impact claims under the Fair Housing Act. And that decision essentially, I believe, led to amendments to the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act of last year, which in turn prohibited states from considering local criteria. I think there was concern that the states were improperly considering some local either recommendations or denials, and that could lead to litigation under the Fair Housing Act. So essentially, they just did away with it.
Thank you. Now I recall, I read this so long ago, and that was the very thing that we were trying to avoid with all that we did to come up with a reasonable method for that. So don't need it anymore, I guess. Thank you.
So let me make sure that I understand. So that 94-point matrix that we had developed in terms of amenities and investments is moot.
That's correct, Commissioner.
So it seems like it might be frustrating, but actually, honestly, if we were doing our job in the way of enforcement of our codes and our own policies, we probably wouldn't have the problems that we have with existing low-income housing tax credit properties. So though it's frustrating, I don't think any of us want to stop development from occurring. What we want to stop from happening is bad development. And we haven't really done a great job at addressing those kinds of properties that haven't met our code requirements. So I think that maybe our focus should be on a 96-point policy that makes us more aggressive in enforcing our codes.
I think it's a great point that there are ordinances that we have already established for buildings, residences within our city and county boundaries, and we just need to get more diligent at upholding those, and we'll be in good shape. So that certainly is going to make our lives here easier because we won't have to read any more of those big matrices.
Right.
Mr. Waters, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Brings us to item number 3, and this is originally was a resolution of financial support for Wyandotte Center, but Ms. Von Atchen has an update for us on that.
Yes, Commissioner. Today we learned that the Wyandotte Center has secured loan or bank financing without needing our support, and so as a result, this resolution is no longer necessary.
So item number 3 then is removed from our agenda for tonight with no action necessary on our part. Thank you. That brings us to item number 4, which is an ordinance to terminate the Northeast Armordale TIF District.
I'm happy to introduce Debbie Johnsher, who's going to talk a little bit about this TIF termination.
Good evening. This is an ordinance requesting to terminate the Northeast Armordale TIF. We had financing out on this TIF, but we have collected sufficient revenues to cover the TIF. The debt was scheduled to go until 2018, but we have now collected enough, so we're requesting that we go ahead and terminate the TIF. Current collections on the TIF are about $150,000 a year. So once the TIF is terminated, those collections will then be distributed to all the taxing entities. And the UG share of that will be about $70,000.
And is this one, I'm sorry, is this one of the districts that was in our TIF update report of about a month ago?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Commissioner Murguia.
Can you remind me what TIF that was? What did that encompass?
Northeast Armordale TIF.
What was it in that?
Do you remember where that was?
What? How was that boundary?
You got the
Factory. It's industrial.
Second Street. There we go. Kansas.
That's okay, he answered my question.
Okay, Kansas Avenue on the north, so.
I just wondered.
Motion to approve the ordinance terminating the TIF for Northeast Armordale.
There's been a motion to approve the termination of the TIF as submitted,
Second.
and there's been a second. Any further discussion on terminating that TIF?
I just have a comment in regard to TIF termination and what happens there. Several meetings ago, we were given a report about STAR bonds and general obligation bonds and other kinds of bonds that we issue for projects. And I asked for a report that would report on some of those individual projects on the bond payoff, the expected bond payoff. We often hear about how Village West was supposed to pay off in 2020 and ended up paying off in 2017. And the reason we don't hear that about other projects is because they're coupled with, there's a whole variety of projects coupled in under one bonding authority. So I had asked for more individual projects to see that report. I don't think I ever got that.
Well, so I think that was a follow-up. Was that the follow-up to our TIF presentation, the tax increment financing presentation?
Yes.
So there was a variety of questions that we came back, and I thought we did forward that to you, but we're happy to go back and look at it again. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm particularly interested in, for example, I asked why we could say that the Star Bond was paid off early out west, but I know that the Walmart and Save-A-Lot project in Argentine is on an incredible fast track to be paid off. But the reason that's not reflected in the report that you provided is because it's bundled with other projects. And so I wanted to see what the payoff was.
Yeah, the schedules. You wanted to see the payoff schedules for
Yeah.
the project.
And I'm sure there's lots of projects bundled together. I was most curious about that project, but would be interested in seeing how the payoffs are going on other projects. For example, the grocery store at 18th and I-70, I don't know if there's still bonds issued on that. Okay, and I think those are general obligation, correct?
It's Prescott Plaza.
Those are general obligation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd kind of like to see when they were issued, what the expected payoff is, and where they're at on those kinds of projects. Again, particularly in the eastern area of our city.
Yep. Yep.
I guess, just for clarity, wasn't that how didn't we show every TIF project individually?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. But we can send it again.
Well, you did, but you didn't show the projection. Like, if the payoff continues at the rate it's been going, if you follow the trend line, you didn't show what the expected payoff date was.
No, we probably showed you just what the debt service is without how much quicker it would be given our expected revenues. So our projection of when we would redeem bonds early because of the positive financial performance. You're probably right about it.
So the reason I bring this up is I'll just use this one example, and my projection could be wrong. That's why I'm asking you to figure it out. So sometimes our government gets a lot of criticism for the amount of subsidy or incentive that we put into projects in the urban core. So when you look at the what was done out west with the Walmart and the tiffing that was done on that project, and you look at the term of the payout, and then you look at the Walmart in Argentine and the Save-A-Lot down there, and you look at the payout, it looks to me like the Walmart trend in Argentine is to be paid off in 7 years, and it was originally a 20-year general obligation bond. So again, my numbers might be wrong, but I think that's something our county should be touting, that there is much of a market in the urban core as there is out west. It just depends on the strategy you use and the business you develop.
Thank you, Commissioner. So staff will follow up with that. And we were at a motion and a second. There is no further discussion. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Walters.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye. That brings us to item number 5, which is an ordinance regarding 2018 CMIP financing authorization. And I do believe Debbie Johnsher is going to present that.
Both item number 5 and number 6 are related to our annual debt financing. And I will say that as well as the finance staff, we also have staff here from Public Works and staff from our bond counsel, Gilmore and Bell, in case there's any questions on any of the projects. This is an ordinance amending our 2017 through 2022 CMIP. The ordinance authorizes the issuance of general obligation bonds and temporary notes to finance the cost of certain improvements. It requests the PBC to issue bonds to finance the cost of certain improvements, and it also authorizes lease agreements to finance the acquisition and installation of equipment. All of the items that are included were approved in the in the budget along with the CMIP. Your packet does include a description of all of our active projects. And I did just want to note in that packet, all new projects that are being financed for the first time are highlighted in pink. All the ones that either have an amended description or an amended amount are highlighted in orange, and all of our other active projects where there's no changes to the project are highlighted in blue. So all of those are included in the packet that you had. So if there's any questions on any of the projects.
Not included in either version of the packet that I received.
Me either.
They should have, these were sent out after, I believe it was last Tuesday, was my understanding that they were blue sheeted.
I have the blue sheet agenda, and I do have all of those.
I don't think I have those. Did you get those, Commissioner Walters? I didn't.
I have them electronically, I just don't have a hard copy. So it's kind of hard to remember everything that's in there.
So you answered what is always, every year, my question about this. Everything here included on this is the same as what we had on those spreadsheets of CMIP projects that we considered at budget time.
Right, well, all of the projects that are in the 17, there could be projects on here that were financed prior to 2017, but they were approved in a prior year's budget. So
We,
all of these
everything that's
projects.
here, we have previously seen on those CMIP spreadsheets that we get as a function of the budget process in the summer.
Yeah, we have not added any projects to this that you have not previously discussed.
And does this contain potentially a little bit more detail about those projects than we had on those spreadsheets?
Yes, this would contain all the total authority of the project, the resolutions, and it gives a project description that shows what work is being done.
Excellent, thank you. Commissioner Townsend.
Well, I think you clarified what the question I had in the color coding. So those color coded with the bands in orange, those represent some changes.
That's correct. Most of them are probably changes to the description of the project.
Okay, but I did recognize some of the numbers as being consistent with budget numbers that we had talked about before. So that was my question, what was the amendment? So, thank you.
Commissioner Murguia.
So I know you all are working very hard to address the ADA issue with curb and sidewalk, the handicap ramps, and I really appreciate that. And I know it's a big county and we have lots to do and a limited amount of money. I just haven't seen those handicap ramp redos in my district for several years now. And in particular in those areas where there's lots of walking traffic. So I've already met with some of your staff, Doug, to talk about priority areas, in particular, again, as it relates to the grocery stores in Argentine along Strong Avenue. Now with the new senior housing, a number of handicapped people, those ramps on Strong or on Metropolitan have not been replaced yet. So just want an opportunity to bring it up and say, I hope those get replaced soon. It definitely will make a difference for the large number of people that are handicapped or disabled.
We'll recognize Mr. Brandon Grover from Public Works.
Thank you, Commissioner. What you're seeing in there are the debt-funded projects. Those are the ones that are under the ADA compliance account code that is part of our consent decree with the Department of Justice. Those were laid out in a plan done in 2012 as priority projects. The ones we are using for like the issues we've discussed with you before are more cash related or other funding sources other than true debt funding.
Do those cash projects help with our mandate from the federal government on the ADA?
Rarely. We have a very large account. I mean, they count towards it, absolutely, but we don't bundle those usually with the ADA compliance project. We get credit for doing those projects, but we don't bundle that money together, which is why you don't see some of the areas that we will do with ADAs in 2018 in there because they won't be debt portioned.
Do we ever see those projects like this that are cash funded?
Typically, we haven't in the past, but we are looking at creating a more robust budget book that could highlight things like that in the future.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Walters? No. Okay. Any other comments or discussion? I guess my question for Mr. Waters would be, since 5 and 6 are related, should we consider and vote on them separately?
Oh, I think in the past, we've usually done them separately.
Separately? All right. Then in that case, we have, the request for action is to approve the ordinance amending the 2017 to 22 CMIP.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Walters? Murguia?
Aye.
Townsend?
Aye.
Walker?
Aye.
McKiernan?
Aye. That then does bring us to item number 6, which is a resolution for the sale of municipal temporary notes and general obligation improvement bonds.
That's correct, and I will just add, we have added also to this resolution, giving notice to the proposed issuance of bonds for the urban renewal project, which is the demolition funding that was included in the budget this year, and the county road improvements, which are the K-32 project. The reason we've included those in this resolution is because there are additional publication requirements for those two projects, and we'll be publishing the sale resolution. Within the sale resolution, it does include all the projects that are being financed and the estimated cost for those projects.
Any comments or discussion regarding this issue, this item? The request for action is to approve the ordinance. Let's see, no, it's a resolution. To approve the resolution as submitted.
Motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Walters? Murguia?
Aye.
Townsend?
Aye.
Walker?
Aye.
McKiernan?
Aye. Thank you very much for your information and for those items. Since item number 7 was removed from this agenda, we have no further business. We are adjourned.